General Maximus Decimus Meridius leads the Roman army to a decisive victory against Germanic tribes, earning the favor of the dying Emperor Marcus Aurelius. When the emperor chooses Maximus as his successor to restore the Roman Republic, his jealous son Commodus murders him and seizes power. Maximus escapes execution, but loses his family, eventually becoming a gladiator who seeks vengeance and justice in the coliseum.
Rather enjoy surprises.
Gladiator.
Is pleased to bring you.
Aurelius had a dream that was wrong.
Dead Maximus.
Us, Maximus!
Alias!
Salute you!
Where are you camped? HDR!
Hey guys, today we are diving deep into the dusty, blood-soaked world of ancient Rome with the legendary epic Gladiator. This movie is basically the gold standard for historical action, featuring massive battles and a revenge story that still hits hard decades later. I put a lot of work into these, so if you like what you see, a like and a subscribe is always appreciated. No worries if not. Now let us grab our swords and shields as we follow Maximus from hero to slave to legend. The air in the Germanian forest is thick with a freezing fog that clings to the trees like a damp shroud. You can almost feel the chill biting through the leather and iron of the Roman legionnaires as they stand in perfect, terrifying formation. The silence is heavy, broken only by the occasional nervous stamp of a horse or the metallic clink of a soldier adjusting his belt. Maximus Decimus Meridius, the man of the hour, walks through the ranks. He is not some distant general barking orders from a hill. He is right there in the mud with them. He reaches down and picks up a handful of dirt, rubbing it between his palms. It is a tactile ritual, a way to ground himself before the chaos begins. You can hear the grit scratching against his skin. He looks at his men and tells them that if they find themselves alone, riding in the green fields with the sun on their faces, they should not be troubled, because they are in Elysium, and they are already dead. It is a great line, though probably not the most comforting thing to hear right before 1,000 barbarians try to turn you into a human pincushion. Suddenly, the peace is shattered by the guttural roar of the Germanic tribes echoing from the tree line. It is a terrifying sound, a wall of noise that feels like it could knock a man over. Then comes the Roman response. The command is given, and the catapults release their payload. You hear the creak of the heavy timber, and then the rhythmic thud, thud, thud of the giant wooden arms hitting their stops. Enormous pots of flaming pitch arc through the gray sky, trailing long plumes of black smoke. They crash into the forest with a series of muffled explosions, turning the trees into a wall of fire. The sound of the impact is wet and heavy, followed immediately by the crackle of wood turning to ash. Archers step forward, and with a unified snap of bowstrings, thousands of arrows take flight. The sound is like a giant sheet of silk being ripped in half. The arrows hiss through the air, their whistling tips finding targets in the gloom.
Then the cavalry moves. The sound of hundreds of horses galloping through the undergrowth is a rhythmic drumming that shakes the very earth. Maximus leads the charge, his sword drawn. The clash of the two armies is a cacophony of absolute carnage. There is the ringing of steel on steel, the crunch of wooden shields splintering under the weight of an axe, and the wet thud of blades finding flesh. Maximus is a whirlwind of efficiency. He does not waste movements. He ducks a swinging mace, the air whooshing over his head, and delivers a quick, sharp jab that ends the fight. The mud underfoot becomes a slick red slurry, making every step a gamble. You can hear the heavy breathing of men who have been fighting for their lives for what feels like hours. It is brutal, tactical, and incredibly loud. By the time the last barbarian falls and the Roman eagles are raised high, the forest is a graveyard of smoke and iron. Enter Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He is old, tired, and looks like he has seen way too many sunsets over fields of dead bodies. He watches the aftermath of the battle from his horse, his face a mask of weary wisdom. He loves Maximus like a son, which is unfortunate for his actual son, Commodus. Commodus arrives on the scene looking like he just spent 3 hours getting his hair done, which is a bold choice for a war zone. He is played by Joaquin Phoenix, who immediately nails the vibe of a guy who definitely burned ants with a magnifying glass as a kid. He wants power, but more than that, he wants his daddy to love him. When Marcus Aurelius tells Maximus that he wants him to become the protector of Rome and transition the empire back into a republic, the tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a gladius. Maximus just wants to go home to his farm. He talks about his wife and son, the smell of jasmine, and the way the sun hits the hills in Spain. It is a beautiful dream that we all know is about to be systematically dismantled by the plot. The confrontation between Marcus Aurelius and Commodus in the imperial tent is a masterclass in awkward family dynamics. The emperor tells his son that he will not be the next ruler. The disappointment in the room is palpable. You can hear the catch in the old man's breath as he tries to explain that Commodus's vices are not the virtues Rome needs. Commodus does not take it well. There is a terrifyingly intimate moment where he hugs his father, but instead of a gesture of love, it becomes a literal suffocating embrace. You can hear the frantic, muffled gasps of the dying emperor and the sobbing of the son who was murdering him. It is quiet, desperate, and cold. When Marcus Aurelius finally goes limp, the silence that follows is deafening. Commodus steps out of the tent, puts on his best fake sad face, and claims his father died of natural causes. It is the oldest trick in the book, and Maximus sees right through it. Maximus refuses to give his loyalty to the new emperor. He knows a rat when he sees one. Commodus, realizing that his father's favorite general is a threat to his power, orders the Praetorian Guard to take Maximus into the woods and execute him. This leads to one of the most desperate escape sequences in cinema history. They ride out into the freezing dawn, the horses' hooves clacking on the frozen ground. The Praetorians are overconfident. They think they are just killing a tired soldier. They stop in a clearing, and the head guard tells Maximus to kneel. You hear the metallic rasp of a sword being drawn from its scabbard. But Maximus is not going out like that. With a burst of speed, he grabs the blade of the sword with his bare hands, ignoring the sting of the steel cutting into his palms. He headbutts one guard with a sickening crack and disarms the other. The fight is fast and frantic. Maximus manages to kill his captors, but he takes a nasty wound to the shoulder. He whistles for his horse, the sound piercing the morning air, and begins a desperate race back to Spain. The journey home is a blur of exhaustion and pain. We see Maximus slumped over his horse, the animal's heavy breathing echoing his own. He is driven by one thing, the need to save his family. But as he nears his villa, the sight that greets him is every soldier's nightmare. Plumes of black smoke rise into the sky. The peaceful farm is gone. The sound of the wind through the scorched olive trees is hollow and haunting. He finds his wife and son, and the scene is absolutely devastating. The silence here is worse than the noise of the battle. There is only the sound of his own ragged sobbing as he collapses into the dirt. He buries them with his bare hands, the sound of the shovel hitting the earth a rhythmic final punctuation to his old life. He is exhausted, wounded, and has lost everything. He eventually collapses on the graves, his spirit broken. Then come the slavers. They are like the vultures of the ancient world, looking for leftovers. They find Maximus in the dirt and see a man who is clearly a soldier. They chain him up and toss him into a wagon. The sound of the wooden wheels creaking and the heavy iron chains rattling becomes the soundtrack to his new life. He is transported across the desert to Zuccobar, a dusty outpost where the heat is a physical weight. The change in atmosphere is total. Gone are the cold, gray forests of Germania, replaced by the blinding yellow sun and the constant buzzing of flies. This is where we meet Proximo, played by the legendary Oliver Reed. Proximo is a former gladiator himself, a man who knows the price of blood. He buys Maximus and a group of other unfortunates, treating them like livestock. He gives a speech about the glory of the arena that is mostly just a fancy way of saying they are all going to die for his profit.
The training sequences in the slave camp are brutal. The sound of wooden practice swords clacking against each other is constant. Maximus is a ghost of a man. He does not talk, he does not eat much, and he does not care if he lives or dies. His first fight in the local arena is a messy, uncoordinated affair. He is chained to another slave, a man named Juba, who will become his closest ally. The crowd is small and rowdy, their shouts echoing off the stone walls. When the gates open, the sound of the heavy iron grates sliding upward is a warning. The fight is a blur of sand and blood. Maximus, even in his broken state, is a killing machine. He uses his chain as a weapon, the heavy links snapping against the skulls of his opponents with a dull thud. He moves with a grace that the other brawlers lack. While everyone else is hacking and slashing, he is calculating. He wins, of course, but he does it with a cold, detached efficiency that unnerves everyone around him. Back in Rome, Commodus is trying to win over the people. He knows the Senate hates him, so he decides to give the mob what they want: games, lots of games. He announces 150 days of festivals. It is a classic political distraction, the ancient version of a massive social media campaign to hide the fact that you are a terrible leader. He also starts getting way too close to his sister, Lucilla. The scenes between them are incredibly uncomfortable. The way he looks at her and the way he whispers in her ear makes you want to take a shower. Lucilla is playing a dangerous game, trying to protect her young son, Lucius, while navigating her brother's growing madness. She remembers the man Maximus was, and you can see the wheels turning in her head as she realizes that the hero of the empire might still be out there somewhere. Proximo realizes he has a superstar on his hands with Maximus, whom they call the Spaniard. He decides to take his troop of gladiators to Rome. The journey is long, and when they finally see the city, it is a spectacle. The scale of the Coliseum is mind-blowing. It looms over everything, a massive stone beast waiting to be fed. The sound of the city is a roar of its own, the voices of 1,000,000 people, the clatter of chariots on cobblestones, and the distant trumpets of the Imperial Guard. Maximus and the others are kept in the dark cells beneath the arena. The sound down there is terrifying. You can hear the lions roaring in the distance, the sharpeners grinding blades against stones with a high-pitched screech, and the nervous prayers of men who know they are about to be slaughtered.
The first major battle in the Colosseum is the Battle of Carthage recreation. It is supposed to be a massacre of the barbarians, who are played by Maximus and his crew, by the Roman legionnaires and chariots. The crowd is a sea of noise, a deafening wall of cheers and jeers. When the gates open and the chariots thunder out, the sound is incredible. The heavy wooden wheels roar against the sand, and the horses' hooves create a rhythmic pounding that vibrates in your chest. The gladiators are supposed to just stand there and die, but Maximus has other plans. He takes command, his voice cutting through the chaos. He tells them to stand together, to form a diamond. The clatter of their shields coming together as a sharp, disciplined sound. The chariots circle them like sharks, the riders throwing spears that hiss through the air and thud into the wooden shields. Maximus waits for the right moment. He coordinates a counterattack that is sheer tactical brilliance. He uses the chariot's momentum against them. You hear the sickening crunch of a chariot flipping over, the wood snapping like dry twigs, and the screams of the horses.
One chariot gets caught on a shield, and the metal axle grinds against the rim with a shower of sparks. Maximus leaps onto a passing chariot, the wind whipping his hair, and dispatches the rider with a quick strike. He is no longer just a slave fighting for survival. He is a general winning a war. The crowd goes from bloodthirsty to stunned, and then to absolutely ecstatic. They love an underdog, especially one that can wreck a chariot with a spear and a well-timed shove. After the fight, Commodus wants to meet the man who defied the script. He enters the arena floor, his white robes dragging through the blood-stained sand. He is surrounded by his guards, the metallic clank of their armor providing a sharp contrast to the silence that has fallen over the crowd. He tells the gladiator to remove his helmet and tell him his name. This is the moment we have all been waiting for. Maximus slowly reaches up and pulls off the iron mask. He turns around, his face a mask of cold, hard fury. He says those iconic lines about being the commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix legions, loyal servant to the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He promises his vengeance in this life or the next. The sound of his voice is steady, low, and terrifyingly calm. You can almost hear the gears in Commodus's head grinding to a halt as he realizes his greatest enemy is standing right in front of him, and the entire city of Rome is cheering for him.
Commodus is stuck. He wants to kill Maximus right then and there, but the crowd is chanting for his life. He gives the thumb up, but you can see the vein throbbing in his forehead. He retreats to his palace to throw what I assume was a very dramatic temper tantrum. He starts plotting ways to kill Maximus without making him a martyr. He tries to rig the next fight by bringing in Tigris of Gaul, a retired champion who is basically a human mountain. Oh, and he also adds 4 massive tigers on chains to the mix. Because a giant man with a mace wasn't enough, we need giant cats with anger management issues. The fight with Tigris is a sensory overload. The sound of the tigers roaring is a deep, chest-rattling rumble that makes your skin crawl. They are lunging at Maximus, their claws scratching against the stone floor with a dry, rasping sound. Their heavy breathing and the snapping of their jaws are terrifyingly close. Maximus has to fight a professional killer while also making sure a 300-pound cat doesn't take his head off. The mace of Tigris hits the ground with a heavy boom, shattering the stone. Maximus is quick, his feet kicking up clouds of dust as he pivots and strikes. The sound of the blades meeting is a constant high-pitched ringing. In the end, Maximus gets the upper hand. He has Tigris pinned, his dagger at the man's throat. Commodus gives the signal to kill him, the crowd screaming for blood. But Maximus, in a final act of defiance, drops the dagger and walks away. He is the Spaniard who defied an emperor, and the crowd absolutely loses their minds. Outside the arena, a conspiracy is brewing. Lucilla meets with Maximus in the shadows of the Gladiator school. The sound of their whispered voices is urgent, competing with the distant noise of the city. They plan an escape. Maximus is to be reunited with his old legions who are still loyal to him and are camped nearby. It is a risky plan, involving a lot of moving parts and people who could betray them at any second. Proximus is even convinced to help, though he mostly does it because he misses the old Rome and because he knows his time is coming to an end. The tension in these scenes is built through small sounds, the rustle of a cloak, the clink of a coin, the heavy footsteps of a guard in a hallway.
Unfortunately, Commodus is more cunning than he looks. He senses the betrayal. He uses Lucilla's son, Lucius, as leverage, subtly threatening the boy in a way that is truly skin-crawling. He finds out about the plot and moves fast. The night of the escape is a disaster. The Praetorian Guard raids the Gladiator school. You hear the heavy thud of a battering ram against the wooden gates, and then the splintering of wood as they burst inside. The fight in the dark corridors is chaotic. Torches flicker, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Proximo is cut down in his own home, his final moments spent looking at the wooden sword that represents his freedom. Maximus tries to fight his way out, but he is overwhelmed. He is captured, and his friends are killed. The sound of the chains being locked back onto his wrists is the sound of hope being extinguished. Commodus decides that the only way to truly defeat Maximus is to kill him in the arena. But he is a coward, so he visits Maximus in the cells beforehand. He stabs him in the side with a hidden dagger, a dirty move that is perfectly in character. He then has the wound covered with armor, so the crowd won't see how badly Maximus is hurt. The final walk to the arena floor is a slow, agonizing process. You can hear Maximus's labored breathing, the sound of his boots dragging in the sand. He is losing blood, and the world is starting to blur around the edges. The final duel between the Emperor and the Gladiator is a tense, gritty affair. The crowd is oddly quiet, sensing that this is more than just a game. The sound of their swords clashing is different here. It feels heavier, more final. Commodus is wearing ornate, polished white armor that looks ridiculous next to Maximus's battered gear. Maximus is fighting on sheer willpower. Every time he swings his sword, you can hear the grunt of pain as his wound reopens. Commodus is smug, dancing around and landing small, irritating cuts. But Maximus is a soldier. He waits. He endures the pain. He eventually disarms Commodus, their swords flying into the sand with a metallic clang. The fight turns into a brutal, hand-to-hand struggle in the dirt. They are grunting and gasping, their movements slow and heavy. Commodus pulls another hidden dagger, but Maximus grabs his arm. The sound of their heavy breathing is the only thing you can hear in the vast stadium. Maximus slowly, steadily, forces the dagger back toward Commodus's own throat. It is a test of pure strength and spirit. You hear the sharp intake of breath from Commodus as the blade finds its mark. It is over. The Emperor falls into the dust, his white armor stained red. Maximus stands for a moment, the sun hitting his face, before he too collapses. The sound of the crowd's cheers fade into a distant hum.
As Maximus lies dying, he has a vision. The sounds of the arena are replaced by the gentle rustle of wheat in a field. He sees his wife and son waiting for him at the end of a long path. The heavy, metallic clatter of his armor is gone, replaced by the feeling of a warm breeze. Lucilla runs to him, her voice a soft whisper in the silence. She tells him he is home. The soldiers carry his body out of the arena like a hero, leaving Commodus's corpse behind in the dirt. It is a moment of profound victory and deep sadness. The Roman Republic is restored, or at least that is the promise, and the man who made it happen finally gets the peace he has been searching for since the very first scene in that freezing German forest. The legend of Maximus will echo through history, a story of a man who was more than the state, more than a soldier, and more than a slave. He was the spirit of Rome itself, the part of it that was honorable and just. As Juba buries the small figurines of Maximus's family in the sand of the Coliseum, he promises that they will see each other again, but not yet. The wind blows the sand over the spot, and the great stone walls of the arena stand silent, a monument to the blood and the glory that took place within them. The empire will change, the stones will eventually crumble, but the story of the general who became a gladiator will remain. The final image of the film is one of absolute serenity, a stark contrast to the violence that preceded it. We see the golden fields once more, the sunlight filtering through the grain in a way that feels eternal. There is no more sound of swords, no more roar of the crowd, just the quiet beauty of a world without war. It is a reminder that after the greatest storms, there is always a calm, and for Maximus, that calm is the reward for a life lived with honor and a death faced with courage. We are left with a sense of completion, as if the world has finally righted itself after a long, dark night. The journey we have taken from the dark forests of the north to the sun-drenched sands of the south has been one of immense scale and deep emotion. We have witnessed the fall of a hero and his rise as a symbol of hope for a broken people. The sounds of battle have faded, the metallic clang of swords has silenced, and the heavy breathing of the arena is no more. What remains is a quiet reflection on the nature of power, the strength of the human spirit, and the enduring legacy of a man who refused to break. There is a peace in the ending that settles over us like a soft blanket, reassuring us that even in the face of absolute tyranny, the heart of a good man can change the world. We can almost feel the warmth of the sun on our own faces as we watch the light fade on this epic tale, leaving us with a sense of profound stillness. Gladiator is a rare film that managed to revitalize an entire genre while delivering a story that felt both ancient and modern. Its blend of high-stakes political intrigue and visceral, expertly choreographed action set a new standard for historical epics. The performance by Russell Crowe is nothing short of iconic, grounding the spectacle in a very human desire for justice and peace. It reminds us why we go to the movies in the first place, to see the human spirit tested and to watch a hero rise from the ashes. It is a masterpiece of storytelling that continues to resonate with audiences around the world, proving that some stories truly do echo in eternity.